Welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and ask everybody to mute themselves as we start our program. Thank you so much for being here. As those of you on the call know, we as a congregation looked for different ways to respond and to participate in the movement for Black lives and to try and ameliorate some of the injustices that are experienced in particular by the African American community in the United States. We've offered a lot of speakers. We've offered to read books. We watched a movie together. We've had a lot of conversations, and our community has just learned more and more how important this conversation is and how much more work is yet to be done. This time during COVID has really highlighted and exacerbated so many injustices and so many inequalities in our society. And so really what I have heard most as a rabbi from our community is, what can I do? How can I get informed? What can I do tangibly? How can we make this better? And so this is what tonight is all about. We're going to hear a wonderful story. Carrie Ann Royce is going to share with us a little bit of her story. We're going to hear from her about this phenomenal program that the YWCA put together that we are going to have the opportunity to now do ourselves. And we're going to hear testimonies about how this has helped open minds and change people. So I'm going to just say that I invite questions throughout the presentation, but I'm going to try and take myself a little bit out of this since I really want to learn with you. But before I can do that, I would like to just introduce Carrie Ann. So Carrie Ann Royce is a mom, a businesswoman, a 25-year veteran of the social sector. She is particularly passionate about social issues affecting women and girls. As CEO of the YWCA South Florida, a non-for-profit organization that seeks to eliminate racism, empower women, and stand up for justice, Carrie Ann brings a wealth of expertise in social justice and innovation, strategic alliances, management, and leadership to evolve the social dynamic of the region through the mission of the YWCA. So now in YWCA South Florida's 100th year, 100 years they've been here, Carrie Ann remains committed to carrying out the organization's mission of rooting out social injustices and addressing all discrimination issues that happen at the intersection of race and gender. So this is a really important topic, which I hope that Carrie Ann will talk about, like what happens when people don't treat us well. We don't know if it's our race, if it's our religion, if it's our gender. How do we respond? She has led the rebrand of the YWCA to a regional presence serving both Dade and Broward counties. The expansion of the board to include men for the first time in 100 years. Isn't it fun to have a place where men are finally allowed in? And the successful mobilization of the largest community-wide movement, which we're going to learn about tonight, called the 21-Day Racial Equity and Social Justice Challenge in South Florida. So looking forward, she plans to continue expanding the YWCA mission footprint until everyone sees all women, girls, and people of color the way that she does: equal, powerful, and unstoppable. So just to give a little bit more background about her, prior to joining the YWCA, Carrie Ann founded the Arrow Consulting, where she advised industry leaders on business strategy and corporate social citizenship, nonprofit leadership, and collaborative community development issues, all with a passion for improving the lives of families and children in South Florida. Additionally, she served on several boards, including Partners in Education Incorporated, the Nautilus Oceans Exploration Trust, bringing the voice of people of color to the STEM fields. Her voice is called on for thought leadership conversations with influential groups and publications like our very own Miami Herald. She has gone to the Miami Herald CEO Roundtable, the Florida Influencer Series, South Florida PBS, WLRN, television, just to name a few. So if her face is familiar, you know why. Additionally, Carrie Ann held a 16-year career at the YMCA in South Florida, where she led the expansion of programs serving more than 3,000 students a day. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology from Florida International University, an executive MBA from Florida Atlantic University, an executive certificate in strategic perspectives in nonprofit management from Harvard University. And she is also a membership of Leadership Florida's Cornerstone Class of 38. Class 38. So with that, you get it, right? You're impressed. So I'm very excited for us to get to hear from you, Carrie Ann, and I'd love to hear a little bit of your story and how then you got this idea for the 21-day challenge.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Greengrass, for having me today. You know, every time I sit through someone reading my bio, I don't know if this is a gender issue, but I cringe. I'm like, how long is this gonna take? I don't know. You know, we have to own our power. And sometimes I hear that stuff and I was like, who is that lady? Who is that? So thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you for having me. And thank you for this powerful space that you have created and carved out in your temple for these conversations. And the fact that you've been leading these conversations for weeks, I am impressed. I am happy to hear that, especially because we know that systemic issues take to systemic responses. And that's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that takes commitment, and it takes keeping the gas pedal on and not letting up, because we understand that we have to keep, it's not an issue of the moment. It's continuous, and it's going to take a lot of us to get to where we need to go. So as you heard, I'm Carrie Ann Royce. I am, first of all, a mom, and I have a 15-year-old and I have an 11-year-old, 15, almost 16. I'm a little scared. I don't know if I'm scared as much as I am, you know, I kind of don't want her to leave. So I'm in that mom place. I have been with the YWCA now for 3 years. And prior to that, you heard that I was in the social sector for a long time. What brought me to YWCA, however, was the mission. The mission of a YWCA is to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And you might remember 3 years ago, we were very much in a conversation around Me Too and Time's Up and a lot of other that were happening around gender justice. Forgive my kind of, what do you call that? My cyber head. I'll try to not move too much to throw you guys off. But raising a son who is a young, beautiful Black man to be, and a daughter who is turning 16, and she's an equestrian, and she believes that she could be everything that she could be. And coming to this country when I was 13, I am a Jamaican by birth, and I grew up in a country where a lot of people look like me. When I looked around, from the school teacher to the pilot, to the person who ran the airport, to the person who owned the shopping center, to our politicians, and to our corporate leaders, I saw many women that looked like me. So it was an interesting juxtaposition for me to come to this country and to understand that I may not be seen in the same way. And it was even more a hard-pressed reality for me to have when I realized that my kids were going to suffer a fate that I hadn't planned on, that I hadn't created for them, and how I was going to navigate that, and how I could not only be a part of the conversation, but be a part of the solution. So as you could tell, I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, sociology, and I have a master's degree, I have an MBA. And that's because I believe that there's a macroeconomic scale to which we can address systemic issues. And I wanted to be a part of that solution. And that's what brought me to YWCA, to be a part of, I mean, a pretty, I would say, bold and a little overly ambitious North Star, to put it in the logo. And you can see it right there. It's in the logo. It says eliminate racism and empower women, long before that was sexy. I think that's a pretty cool place to work. So YWCA has been around for 100 years in South Florida. We have been showing up to do this work with women and with families for a very long time. We serve marginalized women and families by bridging the gap between them and their economic, educational, and health resources that they need to thrive on their own terms. We are committed to ending racial and social injustice until the world sees women and people of color the way we do, the way I do. Our values at YWCA, we call it our 3 C's, which are commitment, compassion, and courage. For over 100 years, we have dedicated and shown this commitment, compassion, and courage through our values that we have demonstrated in our South Florida community. We have a holistic approach to racial and social justice that results in a very circular safety net that creates communication, connection, and change, and serves our community at any stage of life. We empower women and families through a model that supports that and recognizes the complexity of their issues. People aren't singular. People aren't one issue. What we are is complex. And most times, if you're facing one issue, you're probably facing 3 or 4 other issues. So we approach our work in a whole person model, as opposed to an individual programmatic model. We want to learn about you. We want to connect you to our community and all of the ways in which we can help to move you along in your prosperity. We're the first to show up. We were the first to show up in the neighborhoods that need us the most. We were the first to build our center in Overtown, and then we moved into Miami Gardens. And we've been downtown in Overtown now for over 25 years. We have several programs throughout your community. We're actually in 4 preschools. We are in over 8 school locations. We are in 5 courthouses in Miami-Dade County and 1 courthouse in Broward County. And we have 2 centers, one in Overtown and one in Miami Gardens. Our program services have an array. We have pillars in our programs that include tools and skills that build economic resilience, personal and family wellness, especially access to healthcare. We do a lot of breast and cervical cancer work. We have early childhood education programs and youth development programs. We have human rights programs. We mentioned that we're in the courthouses and we provide a lot of services and support for that. And we do community engagement and campaigns and initiatives like this, the 21-day challenge that we're going to talk about in a minute, that really help us to mobilize the collective expertise, knowledge, and awareness of our community. Everything we do at YWCA is for social and gender and racial justice, everything. Our programs might look to some like a similar response to other programs they may see, but every response that we have is to a racial justice disparity issue. I like to tell people, no pools, no gyms, only social justice. That's what we do at YWCA. Social justice all day long. So let me tell you a little bit about 21-Day Challenge and what you have decided to become a part of, and I hope all of you sign up for. As we walked into the truth of the moment about a few months ago that we were all very much a part of, we recognized that there was once again this light being turned on, right? Because none of these issues are new. All of these issues existed way before COVID, existed way before the death of George Floyd, before Breonna Taylor. It existed way before Ahmaud Arbery. All of these issues were already there. And what we saw was that the consciousness, I think COVID really allowed people to be in front of their screens a lot. We were home, we were dialed in, we were paying attention. So things that were happening before, it just turned the lights on and it illuminated and it just set our hearts on fire. We went through a range of emotions. I went through a range of emotions. And it allowed us to bring a conversation forward and to ignite a spirit within our entire community that said, you know, it's enough. Like, we really have to do something about this. And my phone rang off the hooks in terms of friends, corporate partners, leaders in our community, donors, participants who said, what can I do? How do I get involved? I want to do the right thing, but I don't know where to start. It's overwhelming. You look at the internet and there's so much information now. You turn on your television. If you're on Netflix, there was even a feed at the top of your Netflix feed to say, here are some suggestions of what you can watch and read. You clicked on Instagram and it was right there in your face again. There was an overwhelming amount of information and folks wanted to know where to start. And the 21-day challenge is something that had existed in our YWCA network before, but not in the way that we did it here in South Florida. Our Cleveland YWCA had done it once before. And I thought this was the perfect start, with us being very, very remote, but still very plugged in, for people to be able to manage their time and their space in the way that they needed to absorb information. And also the fact that it gives you several ways to absorb that information each day, whether it's a video, a podcast, or an article that you could read. So the 21-day challenge was launched in the summertime. We launched it in late June, early July, and it allowed us, it's called the 21-Day Racial Equity and Social Justice Challenge. And it leans on the idea that it takes 21 days to create a habit, and that it's that time that we ask everyone to give to support equity and to create new habits of justice. So the challenge takes a deep dive into racial equity and social justice matters through daily emails that encourage participants to read an article, listen to a podcast, watch a video. It encourages our community members and gives them the tools to be an anti-racist, because it doesn't require you to always know the right thing to say or the right thing to do in every given situation. It asks you to pause, to make space in your life wherever it's convenient, whether it's with your morning coffee, or it's on your lunchtime break, or it's during your walk that you might take briskly around your neighborhood whenever you choose to do that, just to make that space in your life for 21 days to learn and to create a new habit. And it asks you to take action and to work against racism. And we're going to show you a little video that we used to announce our 21-day challenge to the community. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between not being racist and being an anti-racist, which are two very different things.
Eliminate racism and empower women. So it made perfect sense that we would create a space within our community for you to create a space in your life for 21 days to learn, to reflect, to listen, and to talk. That's the ultimate act, to make pushing against issues and systems of racism and social injustice a habit. Make it a habit. So every day for 21 days, you will receive in your inbox an opportunity to either read an article, listen to a podcast, watch a video, just reflect on your own experiences, all with the goal of inspiring you to change, inspiring you to act. But this journey has to begin with knowledge, to understand the current and historic issues that surround systemic racism and power the social injustices that we see today. We are so pleased that so many of our partners have accepted the challenge.
Baptist Health has accepted the 21-day challenge. We believe with education and awareness, we will become a stronger, more inclusive organization.
Kaufman-Rawson accepted the challenge to join the YWCA in its mission to eliminate racism from South Florida. There is no tolerance for racism at Kaufman-Rawson. As we learn to become the true allies and advocates for social justice, we ask our peers to join us to help find actionable ways to make ours a fair and just community.
The Miami Foundation accepts the challenge because it matters, and because the real work of fighting racial equity starts within.
Will you accept the challenge, South Florida?
Was it wonderful? I love that video. It makes me so happy. We'll also show towards the end kind of our recap and share with you some of our outcomes from our 21-day challenge. And we're so excited that you have chosen to become a part of this, this community of over 4,500 people who participated. Within the challenge, it's broken down in 21 days, which is Monday through Friday. So you don't have challenges on the weekend, which then allows you to catch up on some great content, right? I know that even though I had seen everything as we were building it and tweaking it and making it really relevant for our South Florida community, I couldn't keep up with everything because I watched something every day and I read something every day. But you're going to get from 3 to 5 different pieces of information a day. And you may get through 2 of them because you can read something quickly or you could watch something quickly, but you may want to go back and peruse it and share an article with someone. You may want to have a conversation around your dinner table. You may choose to have a conversation with a group, and that's what we encourage. We encourage conversations. During the challenge, we spent each Tuesday on our Take Action Tuesday where we unpacked what we were talking about that week. On Fridays, we hosted a collective conversation through Venture Cafe, which is kind of a virtual space for community conversations. And we just allowed people to come in to that meeting room and talk about their aha moments, their feelings, like I had no idea, this changed my mind. This really allowed me to look at things in a very different way. We had partners like the Children's Trust who did this very diligently with their staff team, as well as United Way. And throughout the challenge on a Friday, they asked themselves questions like, what did this teach us about our work? What did this teach us about how we need to show up differently in our work? How we respect each other? What do we now realize about our approach that may systemically have marginalized people that we didn't intend on marginalizing? One of the things that you will learn, and let me tell you about the 4 weeks. So I'm actually opening my page while I'm looking at it. Week 1 is the voting week. You will learn things. We'll go through 5 days of how to be an anti-racist, the history of voter suppression today, the US Census, things of that nature. Week 2, you will spend on education. So you'll learn about school segregation, what we teach, school to prison pipeline, teacher impact, college. Week 3, we focus on criminal justice reform, which includes policing, racial disparities in incarceration in Florida, women in prison, after prison. And then finally, in the last week, we focus on public health, racism and toxic stress, maternal and infant mortality, environmental racism, historical racism and bias in medicine, and racism and bias in medicine today. It's a broad array of topics, and what it does is it gives you a historic lens to build on and brings you into current day and shows you how systemic racism shows up in everyday life and how the history of racism actually created these systems that we are experiencing in day-to-day life today. It will give you a new lens as to how you see people that maybe people you've been working with every day for a really long time, and now maybe you've often wondered about their situation or their choices. It will allow you to be more open about separating the person from the situation and understanding that there may have been issues that you are not familiar with that affected the generational outcomes that that person is now faced with. Being a racist and being an anti-racist is one of the first topics that we start with. And the reason is because when someone calls you a racist, that's really personal and it's really hurtful. And none of us identify with being racist. None of us do. We don't identify with actively participating in something that ugly. Most of us, unless we fall on some really far lines outside the bell curve, right? Consider ourselves to be caring human beings, loving human beings who want to do the right thing. It's not that simple. Being an anti-racist means that you recognize it's an active process. It's not a personality issue. It's an active, conscious process. And it recognizes implicit biases that are built into us as people. It recognizes that those implicit biases were built for our survival mechanism as human beings, and our brains are wired based on our experiences growing up, what we've been taught, things that we consume, and those things are natural human responses. But in recognizing that those implicit biases create racist responses that we don't intend, that's actively participating in being an anti-racist. To be an anti-racist means that you acknowledge implicit bias and you build in systems within yourself personally, checkpoints that you check yourself and make sure that you're doing the things that you believe deeply within your core that you would do in any given day at any given time. And I'll give you an example. One of the things you're going to learn in the 21-day challenge is about the fact that women of color are under-prescribed pain medication and oftentimes undertreated for many illnesses. Why would that happen? Would you say that the doctors are racist? I'm pretty darn sure that most physicians are not considered or consider themselves to be racists. But why would that be? Why would a doctor with an equal number of patients underprescribe pain medication to a certain sector of women than they would other people? Being an anti-racist in that situation or creating a systemic response that's anti-racist might be a hospital creating a checkpoint with data that they reflect to that doctor that says, hey, Dr. Royce, the last 20 times you prescribed this, you prescribed this much to patients fitting this demographic, and you only prescribe this much to patients fitting this demographic. What it allows you to do is stop, take a gut check, and look at the facts and re-examine your practices and look at your biases that may be built in, or maybe ask more probing questions, because maybe there's also a cultural difference in the way people are responding to physicians, to healthcare. There are white coat syndromes, where people are they don't question their doctors and they don't complain more than they should. But it allows you to delve deeper. It allows you to ask more pertinent questions, and it allows you to push against your implicit biases. So that's an example of how that works. I'll give you another example. One of our partners who did this challenge recognized that in their field, they were not promoting or even hiring the kind of diversity that they fully intended on doing. And they started to look at their processes in which they were getting recommendations. Now, that's a very common practice, right? In industry. If you have a great employee and that great employee recommends another great employee, oftentimes we even give bonuses for that. But what happens when you do that? When you have a great employee who recommends a great employee, and so you have a cycle of hiring recommendations, you're going to get the same person over and over. You're going to get the same people who have the same access, who have the same network. And those things perpetuate cycles of systemic racism. Not intentional, but still very, very true. So they looked at how they could dismantle and how they could access different groups of professionals within the field that allowed them to bring a more diverse representation to their agency and to their organization, their company. So those are just some of the ways in which the 21-day challenge will affect you, I hope, and how you will unpack the information. And I hope that you will form groups and that you will unpack this together. Glenn Davis, I want to introduce Glenn Davis. Glenn Davis is the first ever board member, male board member of YWCA South Florida. Glenn, our board has played a very, very key role in sparking community conversation and driving action and creating real change across South Florida. Glenn is a proud member of our board. They grow our network of allies and further cement our 100-year organizational history of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Glenn is a senior advisor at Kaufman Rawson, which was the agency that stepped forward first and said, YWCA, we believe in what you're doing, and we want you to bring this to the community for free. And they underwrote the program so that we could bring it to the community last summer. He is a director in the firm's risk advisor services department, and he will be serving on our organization's finance committee, as well as several other committees, including a very exciting property committee that Glenn leads. So I want to welcome Glenn, who's going to tell you a little bit about his experience, why he serves on the board. And, you know, we're a big fan of Glenn, so he can say nothing that we won't be excited about. Glenn?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carrie. I want to talk to you about the 21-day challenge. I'm going to be speaking to you about it, but I want to talk about two additional challenges that I've learned since joining the board of the Y. One of them is the challenge of speaking after Carrie Ann speaks. It's an incredible challenge, okay? I really have to learn, Carrie, to go before it and just do the warm up for you. And the second challenge is that I'm experiencing every day is the one where I joined a board with 14 brilliant, motivated women who sit on the board. I'm the only male on the board, so I'm sitting in a room with 14 truly brilliant, articulate women. And am nervous about everything I say. I feel like I'm thrust back into my teenage years and am concerned about it. I am on the board. I am, most importantly for tonight, I believe Jewish. I'm a Jewish male. I'm a member of a Reform congregation, Kolami in Plantation. If you know that congregation, I sat on its board for a few years too. So been very proud member of the Y board, been proud member of Kolami congregation. And when I was invited, and I also should say at the outset, and at the end, maybe we'll have some time for questions, because I'm also from Brooklyn. So I don't know if any of you know where Brooklyn is, or I've heard about Brooklyn, but we speak sort of with an accent up there, but so you'll know from my Brooklyn accent. I was invited to join the board, and I met Carrie Ann, and she pointed out about the Y board and all it does, and said, you'll be the first male in 100 years. You're going to be in the newspapers, and this and that. It's going to be a lot of focus on you to make an important contribution. And I got very, very nervous about it, but I knew that I wanted to do something meaningful. And my wife reminded me of a poem that some of you may have known, maybe all of us, because it's a well-known one, but it's worth just talking about because it leads into what I got out of 21-Day Challenge. And it's the well-known poem from the 1950s by the Lutheran pastor Niemöller, I believe it's pronounced, where he said, first they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. And then they came for the socialists, and again, I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out again because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak out for me. So having been reminded of that poem, I joined the Y board and was excited to do so, and was presented early on. I'm only been on the board for a couple of months with a 21-day challenge. And just like you did tonight, I learned about the opportunity, a really unique opportunity, to spend 21 days broken up into 4 pieces. Spend a week learning about voting and about systemic racism in voting. Spend a week just learning every day about public health and issues of racism in public health. Spend a week on criminal reform, and then finally spend a week on education. And it was, for me, a month of history, of really relearning history. I realized, like all of the others that I took the 21-Day Challenge for, it's a reset of everything you've known. It's getting you back to the starting gate, if you will, so that when you choose to be an advocate and when you choose to be engaged, those with whom you are engaged and advocating with are all coming from a shared understanding of the issues. And it was profoundly insightful to me, because of course I used words like, saying I'm not a racist. Yeah, there's probably systemic racism in certain sections and portions of our society. So a little bit of cliches like that, but I really didn't get in touch with what all of those things really meant. And so I, along with, proudly, several hundred members of Kaufman Ross, and I just mentioned that I'm sure there's probably in the community down there members of the firm among the congregation, the partners and staff of our firm, and together we took it. That you saw the managing partner Blaine speak before, and he encouraged the firm. So we had hundreds of staff professionals, everybody from the senior partners all the way up to the people who work and deliver the supplies and put the paper in the copy machine. We all sat together and we all took the 21-Day Challenge together. And what was particularly rewarding was, first, we're accountants. Basically, we don't know how to have difficult discussions. We don't know really how to talk about really difficult things. We don't like to do that. We just, we're accountants. We want to talk about, tax changes and policies and procedures. But it gave us an opportunity. We had our session every Monday. We'd have 5 days of the 21-Day Challenge. And on the following Monday, all of us came together, and of course it was on Zoom, and we spent an hour or 2 hours talking about what we all learned together and what our experiences were of what we learned together in the preceding week. It might have been, I think, on the first week on voting. And then we met again at the end of the second week on education, and the third week on public health, and the fourth one on criminal reform. And now there's a fifth week coming. I think I can announce it. It's like a sequel to this, on economic justice. There'll be another week coming out on economic justice. So it was really to be in a shared community along with your colleagues, your friends. I would encourage you to take the 21-Day Challenge, and I would encourage you to take it with your kids, to be able to sit at the table and talk about these topics that are so relevant to all of our lives together, and it to be tremendously rewarding in that regard, to take it as a shared environment. I came away. I know many of you probably shared with me the experience of, at some point in your earlier life, you hear the expression, to go to Israel, to go to Israel. And we always say, you go to Israel and you spend some time on a kibbutz 1 week and a weekend, and then you go to Masada and the wall, and you come back a Zionist. I know everybody who you often hear, oh yeah, he's going to Israel, they came back a Zionist, okay? I can tell you, you take the 21-Day Challenge, and you really become someone who truly understands systemic racism and truly comes away from it knowing that each of us can be a ripple of hope. Each of us can work to dismantle racism together, just like we need to dismantle, wherever it shows its ugly head, anti-Semitism. We must dismantle racism in any way, shape, or form. And so I would encourage the congregation to do it. I will tell you that in terms of just not only me, but when we took a survey at the end at Kaufman, and I believe, and I think I saw here, our founder was a member of the congregation. I think Jay Rossin was a member of the congregation, and I wish he was alive to have taken the 21-day. I like to believe he did take the 21-Day Challenge where he is, but Jim Kaufman did, and the process too. And so the folks, my colleagues, my friends, my family who took it along with me, all said relevant. It was a relevant 21 days. It was a beneficial 21 days. It was, I think, it was a motivational 21 days. It was a 21 days too that left us angry that these are still going on today. When we learn about difficulties of people voting, movements against vote, it's still going on today. That people are having such a hard time voting. Voting rights are not there. So I would urge you to take it. It's a great program together, and I will leave you with that. Take it with when you take it with the kids, take it with your families, take it with your friends, and for those of you who perhaps like me, I'm the most, as having taken it, I'll just leave you with this. I'm among the most popular guests at dinner parties now. Even though I'm a CPA and accountant, I'm now a sought out guest at dinner parties and they ask me to speak on different topics. So it's a very rewarding thing. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, fellow congregants. And thank you, Carrie Ann. And I'm still going to go before you the next time.
You got it, Glenn. You got it. You can tell the passion that we all have for the work that we do at YWCA. We're going to show you a video that we put together from the impact of 21 Day Challenge and just our racial justice work as a whole, but this challenge and how it was a powerful community-wide learning initiative that was free of cost, because we believe that good information should be free and it should be accessible. So here's the video.
This summer, YWCA invited you to learn, listen, reflect, and talk to each other about the issues of racial and social injustice when we launched our 21-day Racial Equity and Social Justice Challenge. For 21 days, we created a space to share and exchange resources to inspire change, dialogue, and action. But we couldn't have done it alone, so we upped the ante and asked some powerful partners to join us. We had over 1,300 registrants. And then over 500 people joined our Facebook page, which inspired over 2,500 likes, shares, and comments within just the first week. Here's just some of what they had to say.
The 21-day challenge taught me a lot about inequality across multiple areas of society. It left me feeling really upset, but also encouraged to try to create change. So I'm glad I accepted the challenge.
The 21-day challenge showed me better ways to use my time, talent, and treasure to influence and challenge perception, practice, and policy in a positive, better way. I'm grateful I accepted the challenge.
The education was important, but what the challenge really did for me was provide a guideline on steps that I can take to make our community better and equitable for all. I encourage you to learn more about the challenge and participate in a future challenge if one becomes available.
We heard powerful stories and testimonials inspired by the challenge during our Take Action Tuesday lives on IG, as well as during our Forward Friday chats. In the end, we had over 4,500 individuals registered who accepted the challenge. And also 152 groups and teams were also in the challenge. YWCA is proud to have mobilized the most powerful racial justice learning collective in South Florida. But now it's time for you to make the next move. Together, we're on a journey until injustice is rooted out, institutions are transformed, and the world sees women, girls, and people of color the way we do: equal, powerful, and unstoppable. Our YWCA Justice Movement will continue to build the collective wisdom, inspire personal action, and transform this moment into a movement to continue your learning, to continue to support your community, or to join our justice movement. Visit us at ywcasouthflorida.org.
I'm muted because it's cyber world. You have seen all the amazing things that this can do. We talked a little bit about our justice movement. You can become a justice mover and you can join our justice movement until justice just is. Whenever you participate in a challenge or you want to become a part of the work, you are free to do so. We believe again in collective learning. We believe in the power of individuals to affect change. Yes, we need to do systemic and policy work, but we need to do work on each other. And there are a lot of us that can make change in our individual spheres of influence. So Glenn mentioned, in wrapping up, and I hope we have some questions, Glenn mentioned that Kaufman-Rossin has again stepped up to the plate because we felt there was 1 week that was missing. And it was a week around economics and racism and racial issues within economics. We are going to be building that week and adding a week 5 around economics to our challenge. We're very proud and that's underway, so look out for that coming soon. You can again join us at ywcasouthflorida.org. You will have links and information to be able to join the challenge, and your challenge, I believe, starts on October 13th. Am I saying that correctly? October 12th. Monday, October 12th. So if you have not signed up, let's aim to get 500 members to join and to start on October 12th. It's important. It's good to start on that date because then you're unpacking and learning the information each day together. So you can talk collectively about what you saw that day or that week. And that's what's special about the collective learning experience. So no, if you register on the 12th, if you register on the 14th, you're not going to get day 1. You register on the 14th, you're going to get day 3, and you're going to start with day 3 and move forward. The point is to do it collectively. So as always, we're always here to work to build strong racial lines and gender justice. We have lots of resources on our YWCA website. Become a justice mover and join our racial justice framework if you so choose. We have lots of opportunity for you to affect change, to get involved, and to help people to prosper and to bridge the gaps of systemic racism through our work. So any questions? Rabbi, anything I can answer?
Yeah, so there was a question, I think Pamela asked a question about us doing this as a congregation. which she is really excited about and really wants us to do, but points out that, the example that you gave before of, that if you have an employee who recommends a friend and they recommend a friend, that you are like tapping into the same group again and again, that we would be kind of tapping into our own little world. And she was asking if this will be beneficial if it's just our own little world, or if we should try and look for partners outside of the community.
I think both are beneficial. And here's why I think both are beneficial. If you have an opportunity to diversify how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, you certainly should. I think oftentimes, especially in this situation, this is why I don't think it's wasted time if you're doing it together in a safe space also. A lot of the people who might do this in your congregation don't identify themselves as Black or African American. And sometimes you need a safe space to have that conversation as well, to unpack your feelings and to be able to say, I didn't know, I had no idea, and to be able to be vulnerable. And I have heard from my friends that they're having very different conversations together than they would have had with me. And seek to have conversations in various spaces, seek to create a new place to go to dinner, a new mommy and me class where you surround yourself with different people. Seek out conversations that are happening in different communities, but don't think that the value is diminished by doing it together. I think what's more important is the actions that you take from learning and the actions that you take in challenging each other to be accountable to the next step.
Thank you.
There's another question I might address. It's from Susan. Hi, Susan. Susan here somewhere. About, are the meetings every day and at what time? Hi, Susan. So the way it works is it's each day, Monday to Friday. It takes about an hour of time, and you do that in your own time. There's either article to read or a video to watch or something like that, and oftentimes I would split it up. I would read an article for 15 minutes in the morning, and maybe towards the end of the day I might watch a video that had been developed for the program, etc. And the once a week was when the community, when all of those participants gather together at a convenient time. For my colleagues in work, it was Monday at lunchtime, 12 to 1 of the following week. So we'd have 5 days to learn. Admittedly, there were a couple of weeks where I had to do my homework, 5 hours of homework on the weekend because I missed doing it every day. But if you do it every day, it's much easier. But I did it on the weekend and did that. And then Monday we had an hour discussion. So what is scheduled is was the weekly discussion for all of you to get to discuss. It's like a book club almost, where you really, but it's really a much more relevant book because you're really discussing all of it, your feelings about what you read that week, and it's really extraordinary when people start to share the feelings. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm thrilled, I'm encouraged. It runs the entire gamut of feelings that people have about what they learned the previous week. And but that's it. So the learning during the week is on your own time, and then the congregation can decide, okay, it's going to be on.
Yeah. That's how we typically had most people participate. We did have one group that decided that they were going to have a coffee break every single day and invite people to do it together.
That's great.
To create accountability.
That's great.
It's really up to you. It's really up to your congregation, to your temple, as to what works and what your congregants are asking for. So, but we just encourage that there is a space, that we do create a space, and that there are some team leads that help to unpack the information together.
I would imagine that's part of what sets this really apart from reading a book or watching a movie. I liked, Glenn, you're sharing a little bit about the processing and how important that is. But I think I just want to echo a little bit of what you said in terms of that these are issues that maybe we see, but we don't stop and dwell and dive deep. And also, I think the reflecting is so important because we don't necessarily think about how does this affect me, or even sometimes let it affect us because it is upsetting. I've repasted the link for us in the chat. It's a little bit of a strange one for me to read for people who are watching on the live stream, but you'll be able to find it at our website, or you can send me an email. Okay. And I will send everybody the link. When it says on the link, what's your team name, that's up to you. So if Brittany, who is on our Zoom today, has a Miami Jews group, she might want to call it Miami Jews. And so when everybody clicks on it, then they will put Miami Jews as their team name, which is our 20s and 30s group, if you didn't know what that was. And maybe there's one that is a sisterhood group. So it's really just an opportunity for us. We now have until Monday to talk to a group and say, let's do this together. And Angelica, thank you, points out that your team name is an opportunity really for us to invite our immediate members and extended family and friends to have a conversation on this topic. Have you, Carrie Ann, I am a little curious if there were any topics that, with the feedback that you got, where if there were topics that really shocked people, surprised people, upset people, if you got pushback on certain topics.
It's not so much that we didn't get much pushback. And the reason we didn't get much pushback, and you will see, is that we were very, very careful in curating factual information. There's nothing in there that's conjecture or opinion. It really is very fact-based. It's historic, it's numbers, it's well curated. So there isn't a whole lot to pick apart, really. I think what was surprising to me was there were people who just simply chose not to believe it. They just said, nah, that information, no, I'm not going to consume it. I just don't think it's real for some reason. And I mean, these are all facts. That was surprising to me, to see people just kind of put up a wall. Some people put up a wall. What I did hear were people who said, I took this back, I took this home, and I had this conversation with my family, or with my dad, or with my mother, or with a friend, and how they wanted support in navigating those conversations with people who were very far away from their belief system. And they were seeking that support of the group to be able to navigate that. So I think it was more about, how do I plug this in a way that people will hear me? How do I share these in a way that I bring you a little from one of the far corners to somewhere in the middle? Not that you have to come all the way to my side, but I really hope that we get somewhere closer to the middle together. So that was more of what I heard. And Glenn can share a little bit about anything that might have surprised him, but I know that the public health stuff, I think a lot of folks, they kind of understand the criminal justice, you hear that a lot. You even hear about voting a lot, especially today. But things like health and education, especially public health, they didn't quite recognize that there were systemic issues that were very much wrapped up in that. So that area was surprising.
Okay. I will share one thing. There was a time that I will share with you that I cried at one point. It was during the week on criminal reform, and it told a story, an article a story about that fact that women, and I know that many women on this Zoom call, that women are incarcerated far more frequently than men. The women that are incarcerated, and that they are punished for infractions far more frequently when they're incarcerated than men. And the reason, it talked about the reason, and I think many of the women on the call will understand, because they very often supportive of their fellow incarcerated individuals. So when they see a woman being punished in some way, they will speak up for that woman, and they in turn become incarcerated. And the article talked about that there's a large percent of these women that have children at home that are under 18 years old. And why I cried was the punishment that they receive the most often is loss of phone privileges. That I can almost cry saying that they say to this mother who was with a child at home under 18, who was ended up incarcerated for whatever reason, that they lose their phone privileges and they can't make their weekly call or whatever at home to speak to their child. And I just thought about that it's barbaric. I mean, that's what's still being used today in prisons. And nothing to whether she deserved to be incarcerated or not. I'm just saying that they found that technique or punishment to be using systemically in prison to punish women. Loss of a phone privilege. You can't call their children at home. And I told my wife about it, and we both cried over it when we heard this little story. So and the week is full, and the 21 days are full of these eye-opening things that make you really want to get engaged and active and advocate for the end of systemic racism wherever we see it, in every way. So I'll share that with you. And so but you end up with your friends and neighbors being encouraged. We can be pillars of hope. We can change this. We can make a change together, because we've all been educated together. So
Thank you, Glenn. Best board member ever.
Oh, I would have. Look, I not to get political, whatever you political, but we stand here on the precipice that there's a Black woman with a Jewish husband that has a very good chance. Has been nominated, running for vice president of the United States, and a Jewish husband. So let's hope they're both accomplished and successful in what they want to do. I'm watching not to be political, but vote. Everybody vote. Okay, it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure that first week is going to get us all fired up in terms of making sure that everybody has access to voting. That is something that our congregation is definitely working on and is very passionate about. We've committed ourselves to be 100% voting congregation. And we really want to see every adult have the opportunity to vote, which is why we worked with Desmond Meade on Amendment 4, trying to reinstate that civil liberty for people convicted of felonies in Florida. And I think one of the things that, Killian, that you have been talking about, where other states, there's plenty of other states where felons never lose the right to vote. And the idea, I think sometimes we are so blind because this is how it works where I am, that we don't even see that this is an injustice, and it needs to be really peeled back.
And the layers of voter suppression, the layers of blatant voter suppression, is shocking. It is very alive and well. Gerrymandering, very alive and well. These issues are not, they're flagrant. It's unbelievable. So you're right. In a united state, it's not united across all states. People are treated very, very differently. And you will learn about voter suppression in the challenge as well, and the history of it.
Yeah, it's very true. I say, in Israel, there's voting booths in the prison. I think it is. That's
Wow. Wow.
So we do have a lot of people asking questions about, about the groups and when they can meet. Please reach out to me. I know our sisterhood, there's a lot of women from our sisterhood on this call. I know that there is definitely a group that wants to start there. I would love to see our board get a group. I see we have some board members on this call. I know our Takuna Long group wanted to get our group going. There are a lot of teams that you can combine with. So don't worry. And I did have one person say they already registered and they didn't put a team name. That is okay. Okay. We will, after this, we can have conversations with our friends. If you end up being homeless and don't have a friend that you want to work with, because I'd much rather you, of course, reach out to as many people as possible and be with people that you feel really comfortable discussing things, because guess what? We all have implicit bias. So we want to be in a space where we feel comfortable talking about that. But if you need a group to discuss with, I will put you the group, okay?
My wife was just suggesting even teen groups and post bar mitzvah group. I mean, let's get the kids when they're young to understand these issues. It's as I said at the beginning, this is a history lesson. You can get a history lesson of the United States in 21 days. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. And for young people going on to college, that they can have this take this kind of education with them and be engaged and active. It's wonderful. So.
Very good point. I actually said it was the best history lesson I never had when I did the challenge myself. It's the best history lesson I never had. Right. And also to add to that, I just wanted to say something really quickly, because we did experience this in the first challenge. When you register, make sure that the email doesn't go to spam. And if it does, you want to bring that over into the file and make sure that you allow it into your inbox, because there were probably about 25%, which is pretty high, unfortunately, where their spam caught it and pushed it into spam. So just check after you register that you're getting your emails and it's not going to spam, and allow it into your inbox.
Wonderful. Thank you. I do want to ask one more question, which is that, as you said, this really inspires you to get involved and to do more work. Can you give us a couple of examples of maybe how somebody who has gone through the 21-day challenge, maybe could plug in to things in Miami?
So that's a great part. Built into the challenge on every day, there is a take action. There are take action items. So specific to the week, specific to the issue and the item, there are different ways to take action that you have been given suggestions of every week. Outside of that, we are just like you. We need you to take action at the polls. We need you to go vote. Okay, that's the first thing we need you to do in terms of taking action. Take a friend, have a voting plan. Make sure that on the 24th of October, walk your ballot in if you have it. There are many things that we're doing around that. And that if within the 21 days, you take advantage of one of the take action items, that's fantastic. We actually did not put ourselves, our organization, in the take action items because we wanted the 21-day challenge to be about our entire community, not just about YWCA. Towards the end of the challenge, we do offer you the opportunity to continue learning, to continue to be plugged into our justice actions over time, because it's not just today, it's ongoing. And we have a calendar of justice items that we particularly get involved with over time. So we've done everything from human trafficking. We have worked on, and now we worked on the census. We're currently working on voting rights and voting. So you have different ways throughout time to get involved with us. And also in being a justice mover, you will be a part of our learning community. You will be a part of all our activations to get involved over time. And you will be able to support the work of racial justice, which, just as I mentioned, is a systemic issue. It takes resources to do this work, not just at the level of the organization, but throughout our programs. And our programs include early education, human rights programs in the courthouses, making sure that women and people can upskill themselves so they have economic justice and they can participate in the economy of our South Florida region and not be left behind. We have access to healthcare, where we do a lot of breast and cervical cancer screenings, because we have a lot of women who are dying from breast cancer at greater rates than they are getting them across the population. And of course, our racial justice work, such as the challenge. So you have an opportunity to support the work that's happening every day in your community through YWCA, or through a bunch of resources that we're going to give you throughout the challenge to take action.
Wonderful. This has been really wonderful. Thank you. Are there any last questions? Oh, I thought Shelley was. Thank you. I want to thank you so much, Carrie Ann Royce, for your time. Angelica and Glenn Davis for like helping make this happen. Shelley for making the connection. We are, as you can see, very, very excited to get going. And I wanna just thank you for the work that you are doing on behalf of, you know, not just women and not just people of color, but like for our entire community, making Miami a better and more just place. Means a lot to us. So thank you for your time, and we're excited to continue to learn from you.
Thank you, Rabbi Greengrass. Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited about this. We were like, yes, the temple, yes. So it was really meaningful to us to get the call and to be able to participate. And we hope it's a beginning of a long relationship.
Carrie, and I'm volunteering Carrie because she went first, so I'm just ending with this. I'm volunteering Carrie, if you'd like, to do facilitate one of the weeks. Can we actually get you to facilitate one of the weeks?
See, he's the boss of me. That's what happens when he's the boss of you, right? He volunteers you for stuff.
Whether it's on voting or education or criminal reform, Carrie, if we can count upon
I'll be happy to.
Angelica to facilitate those discussions for that week.
I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you all so much. This was great.
Thank you. All right, thank you everybody for being here and for tuning in, taking this opportunity to learn with us. We are in the holiday right now of Sukkot, which is a time where we remember how vulnerable we are. And this is really a wonderful opportunity for us to recognize that we are not all vulnerable in the same ways, and to create Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace and God's loving presence for everybody in our community. Have a good night.
Thank you.